Hey guys, today I'm going to take you through one of my quad and calf sessions. So I just finished up this session about 4 or 5 hours ago. The blood has finally left my legs and returned to my brain, so hopefully I can explain everything to you properly. I think a really important thing to start with before we go into the actual training is understanding a little bit of context. Because when it comes to looking at a program or anybody's workout, you really need to understand some of the specific circumstances as to why this program was developed the way it was, as to where it fits in this current training cycle, how that relates to the one prior to it or the one after it, or why I'm trained the way that I am in general. I think it helps to answer a lot of different little questions that will arise as to why I'm doing leg presses a certain way, why I'm doing my lunges, or why I'm squatting under certain rep parameters. So for me, at the start of this year, to cut a long story short, I was dealing with a lot of hip issues, mainly due to a lot of sitting and a lot of traveling from teaching, etc., etc. My hips were getting really beat up and I couldn't squat properly. So for about 3 to 4 months, I had to get rid of squats completely from my routine, which I really hated because I loved the squat. But I was doing a lot of split squat work, a lot of remedial, a lot of structural balance style work, and I was still doing a little bit of deadlifting, but even that, not so much. It was a long period of time essentially where I was spent losing some strength, atrophying a fair bit through the lower body as a result of that inflammation and aggravation in my hip. So since then, it's been about 2, maybe 3 months that I've been feeling good again with my squats, and I've been starting to rebuild that strength. But understand that spending that long a time, a good 3-4 months of not doing much squatting or strong lower body sessions at all had left me feeling pretty weak. So I really had to start back from square one and start to rebuild that strength again. So the last few phases, I've been gradually regraining that motor pattern of my squats. That's why I'm doing them at the start of my session. And I've been doing them sub-maximally to the point where I don't really hit points of true fatigue. I work hard, but as long as I don't see any mechanical breakdown, I don't want to push it to the point of complete failure. I always leave 2 or 3 reps left in the tank. In general, it's an approach I like to do for most compound movements, but specifically now, dealing like on the back end of an injury and trying to regain strength, it's just not conducive to me to be pushing the envelope on my squatting specifically and grinding out reps. So that's why I'm squatting the way that I am. Now, when it comes to the rep scheme for squats, for example, I'm doing 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps. Now, in this instance, it's not purely for strength development. Being in that lower rep scheme, there's going to be more of a strength bias, but you'll see with the way that my sets and rep schemes are set up and the rest periods in particular, there's a whole lot of accumulative fatigue building up in that session. So I don't actually get to a point where I'm going to be making huge leaps and bounds in strength straight away, but I'm going to be accruing a lot of fatigue over time, which will stimulate strength, but will also still carry over to building up a lot of size, which is something that I want to bring back up again. So let's hit play on this session and get stuck into the workout. Quads and calves. You'll see I'm starting here on the seated calf raise, just doing a couple of sets of really sub-maximal weights, emphasizing the stretch position, holding that for about 5-ish seconds each rep. Now, I like to start off all my lower body, specifically with squatting, with some sort of seated calf raise, just to open up the soleus a little bit more. Having the knee bent as opposed to straight focuses the work onto it as the gastroc crosses over the knee joint. Now, doing this is going to pay big dividends in terms of ankle stability, knee stability, and the overall squat mechanics. I think training the calves or getting some sort of stimulation and activation through the soleus specifically is a really overlooked factor from a lot of people. And given the foundational role that the soleus plays in stability and for endurance and strength for the lower body, it's a really important thing to be doing. So after this, I went to move on to some leg curls because again, for me with my hip pain, there has been a lot of issues in terms of activation of hamstrings in the past. So starting the workout with a few sub-maximal sets, again, very lightweight, very controlled tempo, just so I can focus on completely shortening the hamstring. I'm thinking about here not on curling my feet in towards my bum, but on compressing the two insertion points that are behind the knee and at the base of the pelvis. You'll see on the side view here, I'm actually not getting all the way in. I could be getting, in terms of the actual movement, I could be getting that pad right in towards my ass, but for me, my specific end range of my hamstrings at the moment is where it is. So you'll see on this rep here, I'm still stopping slightly short of full range of motion, but my hamstrings are getting completely tightened and I'm compressing those two positions at the back of the knee and the bottom of the pelvis, making sure the entire time that I'm keeping my midsection, my abs braced in a hollow body position. So I am getting some passive activation through my abs and my lower abs at this point. So a couple of sets here, a few sets of the seated calf raise just to wake things up and get some blood moving. From here I go into some more squat specific rec fem activation drills. So I'm just finding here, getting a feel around to see where my active range is and doing some isometric contractions for my rec fem. You'll see as I go over to the left side that I do have a little bit limited range. I'm going a little bit less high than I was on the right side. Now that's part of that instability at the hip and that weakness, and doing these activation drills helps. You'll see on this rep here, I get a little bit better activation and recruitment, and there. I shifted into a slightly higher position that's more even with my right side, which now continues throughout. So I think most people obsess a little bit too much with trying to lengthen or stretch the hip flexors, where most people actually need more tension or contractile ability in these regions. It's not necessarily about creating more passive flexibility, but creating more active stability. And the isometric drills on weak body parts, like for me, the rec fem, can be a really, really useful thing. So this drill can help not only with finding the active range, but to wake up these tissues, because for a lot of people, it is just a neurological thing. So now that I've found that active range, I'm getting into my squats as my first exercise. So I understand that when it comes to warm-up sets, my body is already warm at this point. After my calf raises, leg curls, and some rec fems, my body core temperature is already up. So at this point, it's not about accumulating much fatigue with wasted reps or wasted effort. All I want to do is ensure proper recruitment of the right muscles and that my nervous system is being waken up as I build up the weight. So you'll see as I get to the heavier weights here, I'm literally just doing singles because I don't want to waste any effort at all, and I want to make sure that I'm focusing purely on generating as much neural drive and intramuscular tension as possible. So one thing I didn't film amongst all this is some staggered calf work. Between every single set, I've been going through sets on the 45-degree leg press, doing some calf raises, just about 10 to 15 reps with a very, very sub-maximal weight. Now, I'm a huge fan of keeping a moderate pump in the calves throughout lower body training, both from the standpoint of trying to add size, but also to improve that knee stability roll and squat mechanics. So for that reason, the entire session, I keep doing calf work in between every single set of my squats and my main exercises. So today I ramped up to the top weights, which was 3 plates, and I did 5 sets here. I started out with 5 reps, and then as the volume accumulated, you'll see on these last 2 sets here, I was only getting about 3 reps. So like I said at the start of this video, I'm not going purely for strength development, although it is part of what I want to develop. But by keeping my rest periods low, I am accumulating a fair bit of fatigue. So while I am biasing strength with that low rep scheme, I still do have some sort of volumizing effect and accumulative fatigue and hypertrophy effect by condensing the rest periods. So next up, we've got the vertical leg press for some volume work. Did about 4 or 5 sets here of about 15-ish reps. So again, I'm still sticking slightly lower in the rep scheme. The last phase, I was taking my leg press sets towards around 20 to 30 reps. So this is a relative decrease. So I like the vertical leg press specifically to try to hit the hamstrings, glutes, and adductors a little bit more, which again, for me, I really do need to build up. Even though this is a quad day, I'm still getting plenty of quads, but having that little bit of bias on the hamstring, glutes, and adductors on something like this helps to keep my joints healthy, helps keep me moving properly. If you don't have that leg press, simply doing a high and wide stance 45-degree leg press would be fine. So next up, moved on to some more remedial work for the lower body, doing some basic drop lunges. I had a huge pump at this point, and this is the last thing that I really wanted to be doing, but it's a really important thing to be doing. So I did a basic set for about 8 to 10 reps, I think it was, for a few sets, and then I moved on to this here that you see, which is 1.25 reps, emphasizing the bottom position, which is something that I really need to be emphasizing. See, my stability at the hip joint is terrible. As you saw at the start of the workout, my rec, fem, and psoas, they need a little bit of extra help to help wake up, so they need an extra little bit of volume in the session. So after a couple of the feeler sets of the basic lunge reps, the 1/1/4 felt really, really good in terms of opening up my hips and adding a lot more stability through my rec fem. Now, of course, finishing off with some calf work. It wouldn't be one of my workouts without calves. So I'm not going too mental on them. Keep in mind that by this point, I've still been maintaining those 45-degree leg press calf raises between all sets. So I've already come into this doing about 20 sets of sub-maximal calf raises. So now at this point, I just want to do a couple of rounds of a giant set. You saw me doing the standing calf raise with a slightly heavier weight. Now we're doing the seated calf raise, and I'm really thinking, you see me holding there onto my calves and onto the top end of my tib anterior, just to make sure that muscle is getting completely lengthened at the bottom of the range of motion, and I'm getting proper contractions through my calves. Finishing off from here in this giant set with the donkey calf raise for very, very high reps. I really like the donkey calf raise at the back end of a session to improve that active mobility through the posterior chain. The more anteriorly you can tilt your pelvis, the greater the pre-stretch on the hamstrings and the calves. Okay guys, so that was today's quad and calf session. I'll be doing posterior chain in about 2 or 3 days, depending on the amount of fatigue and soreness I've generated. Hopefully I'll be able to get a video up of that as well. Now, if you do enjoy these kind of videos and you want to see more of them, please do let me know, and feel free to subscribe to this channel on YouTube, and I'll do my best to keep the cameras rolling.